Ladies and gentlemen of the media and of the viewing public. As many of you already know, His Excellency the President has just, in a live address delivered from State House, announced his approval of a one-off grant to all employees of the public sector, a one-off grant amounting to $25,000 per public sector employee. Those of you who viewed His Excellency's video would know that he announced that this one-off grant of $25,000 will be paid to all public servants, all teachers, members of the discipline services, employees of statutory bodies, subvention agencies, and also of public corporations. His Excellency went on to elaborate that this one-off grant will see in excess of $2 billion being paid to more than 60,000 public sector employees. Needless to say, this grant is being paid by government in recognition of the hardships that have been faced and the very challenging circumstances that have surrounded the daily existence of not only employees of the public sector, but indeed of their families and the wider public at large. I might in fact also add that the payment of this one-off grant to public sector employees has to be viewed alongside with government's many other initiatives designed to bring relief to frontline workers and to households across Guyana. If I might first of all focus on the one-off grant, following His Excellency's announcement this afternoon, I've already issued instructions within the Ministry of Finance for steps to be taken immediately to process this grant, and my staff within the ministry have already started that work. Our intention is to ensure that public sector employees receive this grant immediately, and so work is ongoing literally as we speak to ensure that the processing is done as swiftly as possible. I might add that we will also be extending this one-off payment to government pensioners, that is to say former government employees, former public service employees, former employees of the discipline services who are now in receipt of a government pension or an army or a police pension. Those police, army, and public service pensioners who are currently on the government roll of pensioners will also receive this one-off payment. In addition to this, public corporations have also been instructed to initiate action to process this payment to their employees, including, like the President highlighted, including Gaisuco. We see this initiative as being extremely important, not only to recognize, not only in the context of the hardships that were faced by employees of the public sector, but also as an important initiative in terms of the economic activity that it will stimulate. Considering that this will put $2 billion of additional disposable income in the hands of employees of the public sector, they will in turn consume this disposable income by spending it in the markets, in the shops, and in the businesses throughout the length and breadth of our country. That therefore generates economic activity and in turn will multiply itself many times over across the economy. To return to a point that I made earlier, this one-off grant, which, like I said, will put $2 billion directly in the hands of public sector employees and their families, is to be viewed alongside and in addition to the many other initiatives that we've implemented. And if I might mention just perhaps the two most visible ones. As you know, we've also announced and implemented and already paid a bonus of 2 weeks of tax-free pay to members of the discipline services and frontline workers in the health sector. That bonus that was paid to these two categories of frontline workers has already put in the hands of these two categories of employees in excess of $1 billion of additional disposable income. In addition to that, beyond the public sector and across households throughout the length and breadth of the country, as you know, we have been implementing the National COVID Relief Program. This, in fact, is paid to households in every region. We've already completed, I think, almost all of the regions, and Region 4 is currently being processed, and payments are being made literally as we speak in Region 4. That initiative, that COVID relief initiative, once it is fully rolled out, will see $7 billion put into the hands of householders across the length and breadth of the country. And so put together, the COVID relief program, which will put $7 billion in the hands, if I might say that again, put together, the COVID relief program to households throughout the country will put $7 billion of disposable income in the hands of our householders. The bonus payment made to the discipline services and the health sector workers, the frontline health sector workers, has put, in fact, in the hands of these categories of employees an additional $1 billion, in excess of $1 billion. And the one-off grant that was announced today, and the processing of which has already commenced, will put an additional $2 billion, in excess of $2 billion. The sum total of that is more than $10 billion put in the hands of the people of Guyana, aimed, like I said, specifically at alleviating the hardships that were experienced as a result of COVID-19, and recognizing the impact that COVID-19 had on this very peculiar and very challenging year. But in addition to that, consider for a moment the impact that this would have on the economy more broadly. Increased ability to spend at the household level, increased disposable income, which in turn translates into increased consumption within families and within homes, but also which results in $10 billion being spent in the economy, in shops, in markets, in purchasing essential goods and services which are critically needed by households throughout the length and breadth of the country. And I mention only these three initiatives, but in fact, if you look more broadly, if you look at the measures that were announced in the emergency budget for 2020, you would recall that the emergency budget for 2020 also implemented a number of initiatives, things like uniform grants for students. That was a special initiative targeting the school-going population and their parents, or the families with school-age children. In other initiatives that were announced included things like the reversal of the punitive VAT that had been introduced on all sorts of things like electricity and water, utilities, educational services, health services, medicines, and so on. That was rolled back as well. And so all of these initiatives need to be taken into consideration if one is to form a holistic picture. I might conclude by saying that these initiatives are to be seen within the context of a stated policy or some stated policy objectives that we have outlined as a government. These include, first of all, our recognition of the importance of bringing relief to the people of Guyana. And all of these initiatives are to be viewed in the context of that, bringing relief and providing support to households in Guyana. These initiatives are also to be seen in the context of our recognition of how important it is to restart the economy. You would know that the economy went through a protracted period of deep doldrums, a protracted period of severe hardship occasioned by not only COVID, but also the tremendous political uncertainty that affected our country, not just from March to August, or not just from December to August, but in fact that beset our country since the approval of the no confidence motion in December 2018, which itself triggered an expectation that an election will be held within 3 months, which did not happen. And so that in turn resulted in an extended period of political uncertainty, which in turn translated into significant significant adverse shock to the domestic economy. As a result of the political uncertainty, the private sector and the business community adopted an ultra cautious stance with respect to their investment and with respect to their expansion and their operations. Households also adopted an ultra cautious stance, being uncertain of what the future held, being uncertain of what the security of businesses. Lots of businesses started to contract, started to lay off people. Household income came under threat, as a result of which householders adopted a very conservative and a very ultra cautious stance. And so this in turn fed into a very, very difficult period for the economy. And then of course COVID happened as well, and so on top of the political challenges there was COVID, and together the effect on the economy was really devastating. I mean, I don't think there's anybody in Guyana who is not aware of the devastating impact that the political situation and that COVID-19 had on the economy as a whole. And so we recognized, as soon as we came into government, we recognized the importance of restarting the economy, re-injecting, first of all, in the immediate term, re-injecting disposable income to restart consumption, household consumption, and to restart economic activity, but also taking the steps that are necessary to rebuild private sector confidence, to restore and rebuild and further strengthen private sector confidence going forward, because that's essential to investment and creation of jobs and generation of incomes. So I thought I would give that elaboration really to situate this initiative in the broader context of the focus of our government, both in terms of the immediate response, but also in terms of what can be expected going forward. So I guess I will conclude there, except I guess simply to say that the staff of the Ministry of Finance have been instructed to move immediately to process this one-off payment, and their instructions are to ensure that public sector employees receive this one-off grant as soon as possible. And I guess on that note, I would wish to wish all of you, those of you who I didn't get to wish in a direct way, wish all of you a belated happy Christmas. But now looking forward, given that it's Old Year's Day, to wish you a very, very happy New Year, to say to you we really appreciate particularly to the public sector employees, we appreciate the hard work that you did in very challenging circumstances during 2021, and we're looking forward to even more of this hard work and greater productivity and increased production in all of your respective sectors in 2021. So thank you very much.